This is a soul communication between Yumenglong and UN transmission. Continue from Kimi QiaoRenLiang. Persecution Experience Part 1. This is Part 2. Yuan said, so Kimi has been with you all along. I would very much love to hear his story and life experiences. Really admired his and Lu Girong's performances in Brocade Fate, a glamorous adventure. When I heard the news of Kimi's passing, I was devastated. Yumenglong said, like me, everyone around Kimi had been planted by the CCP's upper leadership and Chinese entertainment as informants, layer upon layer, leaving us with absolutely no chance of escape. Even Kimi's close friend Lu Girong, who also played an important supporting role in Brocade Fate. A glamorous adventure spoke out forcefully on his behalf after learning of his death, and was then violated by the upper echelons of Chinese entertainment and sacrificed. Her remains were made into a specimen and put on display in an art museum in Beijing. Like me, Lu Girong did not have access to her own social media accounts. She had to ask a friend at an entertainment company to speak on her behalf using her account. That friend is still burdened with deep guilt and pain, believing that her help led to Lu Girong's death. But in truth, she should not be blamed, though. Responsibility lies with the cruelty of the CCP regime. UN said, the entertainment industry under the CCP system is truly terrifying. What kind of treatment did QiaoRenLiang endure during his lifetime? Yumenglong said, I'd like to first talk about Kimi's background. Kimi only came to understand after his death that he had been trafficked as an infant and sold into an underground laboratory operating with CCP government involvement, arranged for fake parents to look after him. This made me realize how similar Kimi's experience was to mine. Kimi's fake parents did not cherish him, unlike my adoptive mother, who cared for me deeply. His mother, on the other hand, frequently mistreated him. Kimi said that when he was around 6 years old, people from the laboratory came and took him away, and his fake mother showed not the slightest reluctance to let him go. The laboratory held many children of similar age, both boys and girls, and all of them had been injected with some kind of drug that left them looking dazed and unable to cry. Several groups of adults came into the laboratory one after another and selected certain children. One group was sports coaches, and they chose children with flexible bodies, Kimi among them. He refused to go with them and was slapped twice before being forcibly taken away. Kimi was compelled to join a track and field program at a state-run sports training center. Every day he had to run the number of kilometers the coach demanded before he was allowed to rest, but having suffered from long-term malnutrition due to lack of proper parental care, running was an enormous struggle for him. He frequently failed to meet the targets set by the coach, which meant he was denied rest and even refused meals. Caught in this vicious cycle, Kimi fell seriously ill. He was forcibly administered high-dose nutritional supplements through an IV drip, which his body could not withstand. And he developed an extremely high fever. He told himself he had to survive because many children who could not hold on were pushed to the brink of death and sold by the training center staff, 2 military-affiliated hospitals for organ harvesting, clinging to life by sheer willpower. Kimi brought his fever down and survived. Returning to the training center to continue the grueling regimen, the coaches stopped pushing his physical endurance to the extreme and began giving him nutritious meals and adequate rest, not out of any awakening of conscience, but because Kimi was too short. Years of malnutrition had left him both slight and small in stature, but the national team had a requirement. Athletes competing in domestic or international competitions had to be at least 1.8 meters tall and physically strong and sturdy. This put Kimi in a very difficult position, on top of 5 meals a day, plus snacks and a late-night meal. He was force-fed high-protein drinks, of course. If anyone sees a national athlete shorter than 1.8 meters, those are simply the privileged children of high-ranking CCP officials who were inserted into the system. As he approached adolescence, he had filled out somewhat but still could not reach 1.8 meters. The training center then came up with a sinister idea. They gathered the athletes who were not tall enough and sent them to a hospital for height extension surgery. This procedure, limb lengthening surgery, involves cutting the bones, installing metal fixators, and gradually stretching the bones apart. Using the body's bone regeneration process to increase height, the lower leg can be lengthened by approximately 5 to 6 centimeters, the upper leg by 7 to 8 centimeters, with a total potential increase of more than 10 to 15 centimeters, but the entire process is extraordinarily painful. The rehabilitation period is lengthy, and it carries serious risks, including nerve damage and poor bone healing. Most importantly, the costs are enormous. So where did that money come from? Was it state-funded? No. These children had been purchased from the state sports training centers by high-ranking CCP officials and wealthy business owners, to be used for satisfying their own depraved appetites or for entertaining domestic and foreign guests. When entertaining foreign guests, these corrupt, power-manipulating officials would first have recording equipment secretly set up. Not long after these poor children had been made to serve the guests in unspeakable ways, these villains would then use the footage to blackmail the guests, extorting money, obtaining classified documents, or recruiting them as spies to carry out dirty dealings in the shadows. It was for this reason that these high-ranking CCP officials and privileged figures were willing to pay for procedures like height extension surgery and other expenses for the children they had selected, and willing to wait out their recovery periods. But these poor children had no idea of the tremendous harm that was being done to them through these evil schemes. Kimi endured the agony. After the surgery, his height was brought to 1.8 meters. After being discharged from the hospital, he was confined to a luxury residence built by a senior executive of a Chinese entertainment company specifically to house a group of good-looking children. He had just turned 13 that year. Wikipedia states that he graduated from Shanghai Dianji University. But in reality, Kimi never attended university. He didn't even attend regular primary or secondary school. Having received his schooling within the training center, with no experience of normal campus life whatsoever, therefore, any photos circulating online that appear to show him on a school campus are fabricated images created by the training center's staff, and his university credentials were forged by the entertainment company executives who held him captive. Inside that residence, armed bodyguards capable of hand-to-hand combat were stationed both inside and out. The boys were frequently covered in injuries from being violated and abused by the entertainment industry's upper management, and were sent to serve those whom these figures considered important guests. Those who refused to comply were beaten and persecuted. Kimi refused to submit, and on several occasions was nearly beaten to death. Yuan said, "I never imagined that Renliang had also been subjected to inhumane surgery and become a victim of sexual crimes. But he was an athlete at a state sports training center. I've seen on Wikipedia that before entering the entertainment industry, QiaoRenLiang was a track and field athlete who reached the national second-level standard in the high jump, and that he and hurdler Li Sheng were schoolmates in primary and secondary school. Also, what were the circumstances that led QiaoRenLiang into the entertainment industry?" Yumenglong said. "Wikipedia is something anyone can go in and enter information on. Whatever result an entertainment company wants, they simply send someone in to input the information. Besides, having an athlete background was an identity tailor-made for Kimi by the entertainment company. In the residence where the victimized teenagers were detained, Kimi was routinely beaten. The most severe instance left him with a fractured sternum, and he was hospitalized with serious injuries. But his nature was such that the harder you hit him, the more he refused to yield, and this caught the attention of the upper management of Chinese entertainment, who made a special trip to the hospital to see this child with such unyielding spirit, even with his body wrapped in bandages. Lying weakly in the hospital bed with barely a breath left in him, Kimi still would not submit. The senior entertainment executive was struck by his indomitable character and asked him, what did he actually want? Kimi thought it over with his broken body. Going back to the training center would likely mean he could never compete for the national team anyway. Now, all he wanted was to become famous fast. Once he was famous, he would be seen by many people, with fans, and becoming a figure in the public eye. These villains would no longer dare harm him. Going back to the training center was no longer an option, and being buried in obscurity and endlessly persecuted that was not acceptable. Kimi told the senior entertainment executive that he wanted to debut and enter the entertainment industry. They held a meeting and agreed. So after being discharged from the hospital, he came to the entertainment company and became a trainee, and it was there that he met me in the depths of my own ordeal. Thanks for watching. Follow Yuan. Transmission on Gan Jing World.